The Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal, its walls reflecting the bioluminescent patterns of a dozen different species. Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the human delegation platform, watching as the Zephyrian representative's tentacles writhed in what he had learned meant extreme distress. "The request is denied," announced High Counselor Vexstar, his metallic voice echoing through translation devices across the vast hall. The Corvanian's 6 eyes focused on different points in the chamber, a sign of his absolute authority. "The Zephyrians offer nothing of value to warrant protection under the Galactic Defense Protocols." Chen's jaw tightened as he watched the small, jellyfish-like being float helplessly in its containment sphere. The Zephyrian delegation consisted of only 3 individuals, their translucent bodies pulsing with muted colors that Chen's briefings had taught him indicated resignation and defeat. "Honored Council," the lead Zephyrian, Velana, spoke through her aquatic translator, her voice carrying the musical quality of her species. "Our homeworld of Zephyr Prime faces imminent destruction from solar flares. We require only temporary sanctuary while we seek a new home. We ask for nothing more than the basic right to survive." A chorus of what could only be described as laughter erupted from various species around the chamber. The Thackeray delegation, massive reptilian beings known for their military might, slapped their tails against their platforms in amusement. The Eldorian collective, beings of pure energy contained in crystalline forms, pulsed with colors Chen had learned indicated mockery. "The Zephyrians," announced Senator Kvash of the Hegemony Union, his serpentine form coiling around his speaking podium, "are aquatic primitives. They have no technology we desire, no resources worth claiming, and no military strength to offer in exchange. They are irrelevant." Chen watched as Velana's body dimmed, her bioluminescent patterns fading to nearly nothing. Her 2 companions floated motionless, their hope visibly draining away. In the 3 years since humanity had joined the Galactic Council, Chen had witnessed dozens of such requests. The pattern was always the same: species were judged solely on what they could contribute to the greater galactic community's power and wealth. The Altarian Federation, known for their advanced mathematics, had been welcomed with open arms. The Nexus Confederacy, masters of quantum engineering, had been given protected status within hours of first contact. But species like the Zephyrians, whose greatest achievement was their ability to navigate ocean currents across vast distances, were deemed worthless. "The matter is settled," Vexstar declared, his mechanical limbs adjusting his ceremonial robes. "The Zephyrians will receive no aid from this council. Their world's destruction is unfortunate but irrelevant to galactic stability." Chen felt his hands clench into fists. Around him, the other human delegates shifted uncomfortably. Ambassador Rodriguez leaned over and whispered, "Chen, don't do anything rash. We're still new here. We can't afford to make enemies." But Chen was already stepping forward to his microphone. The chamber's attention shifted to him, thousands of eyes, sensors, and appendages focusing on the human delegation platform. "Honored Council," Chen began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, "I request permission to speak on behalf of the human delegation." A murmur rippled through the chamber. It was unusual for such a junior member species to interject during formal proceedings. Vexstar's 6 eyes swiveled toward Chen, each one reflecting a different emotion: annoyance, curiosity, and what might have been amusement. "The humans may speak," Vexstar granted, though his tone suggested it was more for entertainment than genuine interest. Chen straightened his shoulders and looked directly at Velana's floating form before addressing the council. "The human delegation formally requests that the Zephyrian people be granted sanctuary within human-controlled space while they search for a new homeworld." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of sounds. Mechanical clicks from the Corvanian delegation, harmonic resonances from the crystal beings, and what sounded like actual laughter from several carbon-based species filled the air. "The humans offer sanctuary?" Kvash's serpentine form rose higher, his hood flaring in what Chen recognized as a dominance display. What could primitives like the Zephyrians possibly offer to primitives like humans? The insult stung, but Chen kept his expression neutral. Humanity had been granted council membership primarily because of their rapid technological development and their ability to adapt alien technologies. But they were still considered junior members, barely above species like the Zephyrians in the galactic hierarchy. The Zephyrians offer something invaluable, Chen replied, his voice steady despite the hostile attention of hundreds of alien beings. They offer the chance to preserve a unique form of life and knowledge that has existed for millions of years. Their understanding of fluid dynamics and three-dimensional navigation through liquid mediums is unparalleled. Fluid dynamics? The Thrakkery military commander, General Hixfor, slapped his tail again in amusement. What use is swimming to a galactic civilization? Chen smiled slightly. General, with respect, your people have been trying to develop efficient underwater exploration vessels for your water worlds for over 2 centuries. The Zephyrians have been navigating three-dimensional liquid environments with perfect efficiency for their entire evolutionary history. The chamber quieted slightly. Chen could see he had struck a nerve with several delegations. The Altarians, despite their mathematical prowess, had notoriously struggled with fluid dynamics problems. The Nexus Confederacy's quantum engineering was useless underwater where their energy matrices destabilized. Furthermore, Chen continued, gaining confidence, the Zephyrians' bioluminescent communication system operates on frequencies that could revolutionize deep space communication arrays. Their ability to process information through color and light patterns in real time surpasses most artificial intelligence systems I've encountered. Velana's form began to brighten slightly, her pattern shifting to what Chen hoped indicated surprise and renewed hope. Her companions also began to pulse with more vibrant colors. High Counselor Vexstar leaned forward, his mechanical joints whirring softly. Even if what you say has merit, human, your species lacks the resources to properly support refugees. You control only 12 star systems and possess limited terraforming capabilities. That's correct, Counselor, Chen acknowledged. We are a young species with limited resources. But we believe that diversity of thought and experience is more valuable than immediate material gain. The Zephyrians may not have resources or weapons, but they have knowledge and perspectives that could benefit everyone. Pretty words, sneered Senator Kvash. But words don't provide food, shelter, or protection from hostile forces. How do you propose to care for millions of aquatic beings when your own colonies are still struggling to establish themselves? Chen had anticipated this question. He pulled out a datapad and began transmitting information to the Council's central display. We propose a partnership model. We'll provide the Zephyrians with aquatic habitats on 3 of our ocean worlds, New Pacifica, Coral Haven, and Deep Blue. In return, they'll share their knowledge of marine ecosystems, underwater construction techniques, and fluid-based technologies. The display showed detailed schematics of underwater cities that human engineers had designed in collaboration with the 3 Zephyrian delegates over the past month. The designs were elegant and efficient, using principles of water flow and pressure that most galactic species had never considered. These habitats, Chen explained, would be largely self-sustaining. The Zephyrians are natural ecosystem engineers. They can cultivate marine environments that are more productive and stable than anything we could create alone. They're not just refugees seeking charity, they're potential partners offering mutual benefit. Ambassador Rodriguez grabbed Chen's arm and whispered urgently, Chen, what are you doing? We never discussed any of this with Earth Command. You're making commitments we might not be able to keep. Chen gently pulled away and continued addressing the Council. The human government has already approved preliminary habitat construction. We're not asking the Council for resources or support. We're simply informing you of our decision to offer sanctuary to the Zephyrians within our own territory. A new voice entered the debate. Counselor ZYX Anna of the Ethereal Concordance, beings of pure thought who rarely spoke in council sessions, projected her words directly into the translation systems. The humans propose to act unilaterally. This sets a dangerous precedent. What prevents other junior species from harboring refugees without council approval? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Chen realized he was at a crucial moment. His next words could either establish humanity as a species willing to stand by their principles or mark them as troublemakers who didn't understand galactic politics. Counselor ZYX Anna raises an important point, Chen said carefully. The Council has established protocols for refugee situations. But those protocols only apply when the Council chooses to act. When the Council chooses not to act, individual species retain the right to make their own decisions within their own territories. Vextar's mechanical limbs clicked rapidly, indicating deep thought. You quote galactic law accurately, human. But, you misunderstand galactic politics. Species that act without considering the broader implications often find themselves isolated and vulnerable. The threat was subtle but clear. Chen felt sweat beading on his forehead despite the chamber's controlled climate. He was potentially committing humanity to a path that could make them enemies of more powerful civilizations. High Counselor, Chen replied, meeting the Corvanian's gaze with all six of his eyes. Humanity has always believed that doing what's right is more important than doing what's expedient. We'd rather be isolated and honorable than accepted and complicit in genocide through negligence. The word genocide sent another ripple through the chamber. It was a strong accusation, and everyone knew it. By refusing to help the Zephyrians, the Council was effectively condemning their entire species to extinction. Velana suddenly moved forward in her containment sphere, her patterns blazing with new intensity. Honored Council, if I may speak. Vextar gestured impatiently. The Zephyrian may speak briefly. I wish to address the human ambassador Chen Wei directly, Velana said, her musical voice carrying new strength. Why? Why would your people risk their standing in the galactic community for strangers? We have no shared history, no alliance, no debt between our species. Why would humans care what happens to Zephyrians? The chamber fell silent. It was a question that cut to the heart of the matter. In galactic politics, species only acted out of self-interest. Altruism was considered a weakness, compassion a luxury that only the most powerful could afford. Chen looked at Velana's floating form, at her two companions whose own patterns had intensified as they watched him. He thought of the briefings he'd read about Zephyr Prime, about the billions of sentient beings facing extinction not through war or conquest, but through cosmic indifference. Because, Chen said simply, we know what it's like to be alone. He paused, gathering his thoughts. 300 years ago, my species faced extinction from our own actions. Climate change, resource depletion, war, we nearly destroyed ourselves. We survived because a few people chose to put the future ahead of immediate gain, chose cooperation over competition, chose hope over despair. The chamber remained silent, but Chen could sense that he had their attention in a new way. We survived because we learned that strength isn't about what you can take from others. It's about what you can give. The Zephyrians aren't asking for charity. They're offering partnership. They're not seeking handouts, they're seeking a chance to contribute. Chen turned to address the full council. Every species in this chamber was once vulnerable. Every civilization here once needed help from others. The difference is that most of you received that help. The Zephyrians are being denied it not because they're incapable, but because they're unfamiliar. General Hicksbore slammed his tail against his platform. Emotional appeals mean nothing, human. Sentiment doesn't build fleets or feed populations. You're right, General, Chen acknowledged. But innovation does. And innovation comes from new perspectives, from diversity of thought, from the willingness to learn from those who see the universe differently than we do. He activated another display showing human technological developments. In the 3 years since joining this council, humanity has made 17 significant technological breakthroughs. 14 of those came from studying alien technologies and adapting them to our needs. We learned faster than light communication by studying Altarian mathematics. We developed our shield systems by adapting Corvanian metallurgy. We advanced our medical technology by incorporating hegemony biological sciences. The delegates were paying closer attention now. Technological advancement was something they understood and respected. The point, Chen continued, is that we advanced by being open to learning from others, even when they seem to have nothing to offer at first glance. The Zephyrians may not have weapons or starships, but they have millions of years of evolutionary adaptation to challenges that many of our species still struggle with. Counselor ZYX Anna projected her thoughts again. An interesting argument, human. But you still haven't explained how you plan to care for millions of refugees with your limited resources. Chen smiled. We don't plan to care for them, Counselor. We plan to work with them. The Zephyrians aren't helpless. They're capable beings who've managed complex societies for millennia. They don't need us to take care of them, they need us to give them space to take care of themselves. He brought up the habitat designs again. These underwater cities aren't refugee camps. They're collaborative settlements where humans and Zephyrians will work together. Our engineers provide the construction and life support systems. Their expertise provides the design principles and ecological management. Both species benefit. Vextar leaned back in his ceremonial chair. You speak of collaboration and mutual benefit, human. But what happens when the Zephyrian sun finally dies and they require permanent resettlement? What happens when their population grows beyond what your ocean worlds can support? Then, we'll face those challenges when they come, Chen replied. But, we'll face them together, as partners. And, maybe by then, the Zephyrians will have contributed enough to galactic civilization that other species will see their value as well. The implication was clear but diplomatically phrased. Perhaps other species would eventually realize they had been wrong to dismiss the Zephyrians. Senator Kvashesud flared again. The human implies that the Council's judgment is flawed. Chen held up his hands in a peaceful gesture. Not flawed, Senator. Simply focused on different priorities. The Council must consider the stability and prosperity of thousands of species across millions of worlds. It's natural that the needs of a single species might be overlooked in such a vast scope. It was a diplomatic way of saying that the Council was too concerned with power politics to care about compassion, but phrased in a way that avoided direct offense. High Counselor Vextar stood, his mechanical form rising to its full 3-meter height. The human delegation has made its position clear. They will offer sanctuary to the Zephyrians within their own territory, accepting full responsibility for any consequences. Chen nodded. That is correct, High Counselor. And, if this decision leads to complications? If the Zephyrians prove unable to adapt, or if their presence creates problems for human colonies? Then, we'll deal with those problems as they arise, Chen said firmly. But, we won't abandon a species to extinction without trying to help them. Vextar's 6 eyes focused on Chen with what might have been respect. Very well. The Council will not prevent the humans from offering sanctuary to the Zephyrians within human space. However, be aware that this decision may have implications for humanity's standing within the galactic community. We understand, High Counselor, Chen replied. And, we accept those implications. The Corvanian leader gestured to his aide, who began preparing the official documentation. Let the record show that the human delegation has formally offered sanctuary to the Zephyrian species, accepting full responsibility for their welfare and integration. As the council session continued with other business, Chen felt a gentle vibration through his translation device. It was Velana, sending a private communication. Ambassador Chenwei, her musical voice came through clearly. On behalf of all Zephyrians, I thank you. Not just for the sanctuary, but for seeing us as more than our limitations. Chen adjusted his own communicator to respond privately. Velana, I hope you understand that this won't be easy. We're both taking a big risk. Yes, she replied, her patterns brightening. But, it is a risk taken together, with hope for the future rather than fear of change. This is more than we dared hope for when we came to the council. As the session concluded and delegates began filing out of the chamber, Ambassador Rodriguez approached Chen with a concerned expression. Chen, I hope you know what you've done, Rodriguez said quietly. Earth Command is going to want a full explanation, and some of the other species aren't going to forget this. Chen watched as the Zephyrian delegation prepared to leave their containment spheres, their bioluminescent patterns now pulsing with what he had learned indicated excitement and gratitude. I know exactly what I've done, Maria, Chen replied. I've given humanity a chance to prove that we're more than just another power-hungry species fighting for resources. I've given us a chance to show that we can be better than the galactic norm. As they walked toward the exit, Rodriguez shook her head. I just hope the Zephyrians are worth the political cost. Chen paused and looked back at Velana, who was floating near the chamber's exit, surrounded by her companions. Her patterns had shifted to deep blues and purples, colors his briefings had indicated meant determination and hope. They're not just worth it, Maria, Chen said softly. They're going to help us become worth it. As the human delegation left the council chamber, none of them realized that their decision would ultimately reshape not just their own species' destiny, but the entire structure of galactic civilization. The choice to protect the Overlooked would prove to have consequences far beyond what anyone in that chamber could have imagined. The first document of their story was ending, but the real adventure was just beginning. 6 months after the council session, Dr. Sarah Kim stood on the observation deck of Deep Blue Station, watching as the final transport ships descended toward the ocean world's surface. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum windows, she could see dozens of Zephyrian vessels, graceful, organic-looking ships that moved through space with the same fluid motions their creators used underwater. Status report, Dr. Kim, came the voice of Captain Torres through her communicator. Sarah activated her response unit while continuing to watch the beautiful display below. The last group of Zephyrian families is arriving now, Captain. That brings our total population to 2.3 million across all 3 ocean worlds. Integration is proceeding ahead of schedule. She smiled as she watched a group of young Zephyrians, their bodies smaller and more translucent than the adults, playing in the specially designed entry pools. Their bioluminescent patterns flickered rapidly, and what she had learned was the equivalent of laughter. Any problems with the habitat systems? Torres asked. Quite the opposite, Sarah replied, pulling up data on her tablet. The Zephyrians have improved our original designs by 37%. They've created circulation patterns that increase efficiency and reduce energy consumption. Some of their modifications are so elegant that our best engineers are still trying to understand how they work. The truth was even more remarkable than Sarah was reporting. In just 6 months, the collaboration between humans and Zephyrians had produced innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. The underwater cities weren't just functioning, they were thriving. Dr. Kelvas, Sarah's Zephyrian counterpart, floated up in his mobile aquatic suit, a human invention that allowed Zephyrians to work in air-filled environments for extended periods. His patterns showed the deep green and silver that indicated intense focus. Dr. Kim, Kelvas said through his translator, the Council of Elders would like to share something with you. Something we think your people will find very interesting. Sarah turned from the window. Over the months, she had developed a good working relationship with the Zephyrian scientific community. They were brilliant in ways that human science was only beginning to appreciate. What is it, Kelvas? We've been studying the ocean currents on your 3 worlds, he explained, his patterns shifting to excited yellows and blues. There are patterns here that we've never seen before. The interaction between your artificial gravity systems and natural water flow creates possibilities. He activated a holographic display that showed the ocean systems of all 3 human worlds where Zephyrians had settled. The currents formed complex 3-dimensional patterns that pulsed and shifted in hypnotic rhythms. Our navigators believe these patterns could be used for faster-than-light communication, Kelvas continued. Not through space, but through what you call subspace. The current flows create resonance patterns that might allow instantaneous communication across vast distances. Sarah stared at the display, her mind racing. Kelvas, are you saying that ocean currents could be used to send messages faster than our quantum communication arrays? Not just messages, the Zephyrian scientist replied, his patterns brightening with excitement. If our calculations are correct, these resonance patterns could allow real-time coordination across multiple star systems. Fleet movements, scientific data, even personal communications could be transmitted instantly. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. The galactic community's greatest limitation was communication delay across vast distances. Even quantum entanglement communication required complex relay stations and suffered from degradation over long ranges. If the Zephyrians had discovered a way to eliminate communication lag entirely. Dr. Kim to command, Sarah spoke into her communicator. I need an immediate conference with Admiral Chan and the Science Council. Priority Alpha. As she waited for the connection, Sarah watched Kelvas float in his suit, his pattern showing what she had learned indicated barely contained excitement mixed with nervousness. Kelvas, she said gently, how long have your people known about this? The principles have been part of our navigation techniques for thousands of years, he replied. But we never had access to the kind of technology needed to test it on this scale. Your artificial gravity generators and quantum field manipulators make it possible to create the precise resonance patterns needed. Admiral Chen's voice crackled through the communicator. Dr. Kim, this is Admiral Chen. I understand you have urgent information. Admiral, Sarah began carefully, I need to speak with you about a potential breakthrough. It's significant. How significant? Sarah looked at the holographic display again, at the flowing patterns that could revolutionize galactic communication. Potentially game-changing, sir. I recommend we convene an emergency science council meeting. 2 hours later, Sarah found herself in a secure conference room with Admiral Chen, the human colony administrators, and a delegation of Zephyrian scientists led by Elder Mirana, one of their most respected theorists. Elder Mirana floated in a large aquatic chamber at one end of the table, her ancient form showing the deep purples and golds that indicated wisdom and authority among her people. When she spoke, her words carried the weight of centuries. Humans, she began, her translator giving her musical voice a formal tone, we share this knowledge because you showed us trust when no others would. But, you must understand the implications of what we offer. Admiral Chan leaned forward. Please explain, Elder. This communication technology would make your species among the most powerful in the galaxy, Mirana continued. Real-time coordination across vast distances would revolutionize warfare, trade, exploration, and governance. Other civilizations would either seek to ally with you or destroy you to prevent you from gaining such an advantage. The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Dr. Harrison, the chief science officer, spoke first. Elder Mirana, how certain are you that this technology will work? We have tested the principles on a small scale, she replied. The mathematics are sound. With your technology and our knowledge, we could have a working prototype within 6 months. Admiral Chen stood and began pacing. If this works, it changes everything. Not just for humanity, but for the entire galactic balance of power. Sarah raised her hand. Admiral, there's something else to consider. This discovery came from the collaboration between our species. It's not purely human technology or purely Zephyrian knowledge. It belongs to both our peoples. What are you suggesting, Dr. Kim? I'm suggesting that we treat this as what it is, a partnership breakthrough. Any patents, any applications, any benefits should be shared equally between humanity and the Zephyrian people. Elder Mirana's patterns brightened considerably. Dr. Kim speaks with wisdom. This technology represents the best of both our civilizations working together. Admiral Chen stopped pacing and looked around the room. Before we make any decisions, I need to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with. Dr. Harrison, what would be required to develop this technology? Dr. Harrison consulted his notes. Based on what the Zephyrians have presented, we'd need to construct specialized facilities on all 3 ocean worlds. The resonance patterns require precise coordination between multiple planetary systems. We're looking at a massive construction project and significant resource allocation. Resources we might not have, added Colony Administrator Webb. We're still building basic infrastructure for the Zephyrian settlements. Elder Mirana gestured to one of her companions, a younger Zephyrian whose patterns indicated expertise in what humans would call engineering. This is Coordinator Fluxen, Mirana said. She has developed construction techniques that could reduce your resource requirements by 70% while improving efficiency. Fluxen activated her own display, showing construction methods that used ocean currents themselves to move and position massive underwater structures. The techniques were elegant and efficient, using natural forces rather than fighting against them. Your people build by imposing structure on the environment, Fluxen explained through her translator. We build by working with environmental forces. Combined, we can create facilities that are both more efficient and more sustainable. Admiral Chen studied the displays carefully. Even with improved efficiency, this project would require the full commitment of our 3 ocean worlds. It would also require secrecy until we understand the full implications. Secrecy? Sarah asked. Admiral, we can't keep this from Earth Command or the Galactic Council indefinitely. We don't keep it from Earth Command, Chen replied. But we need time to develop the technology and understand its implications before announcing it to the galaxy. If other species learn about this before we're ready to defend ourselves. He didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone in the room understood that species like the Thackeray or the Hegemony Union wouldn't hesitate to take the technology by force if they learned about it prematurely. Elder Mirana pulsed with deep blue patterns. Admiral Chan raises valid concerns. But there is another consideration. Other species will eventually discover that something significant is happening in human space. The energy signatures required for this technology cannot be completely hidden. How much time do you estimate we have? Chen asked. If we begin construction immediately and work efficiently, perhaps 18 months before the energy patterns become detectable to long-range sensors, replied Coordinator Fluxon. Admiral Chen sat down heavily. 18 months to develop revolutionary technology, integrate it into our infrastructure, and prepare for the political consequences. Dr. Kim, I want you to head up the human side of this project. Elder Mirana, would your people be willing to assign a permanent scientific delegation? We would be honored to participate, Mirana replied. But we request that any benefits from this technology be shared equitably between our peoples. Agreed, Chen said without hesitation. This is a partnership project with partnership benefits. Over the following months, the ocean worlds of New Pacifica, Coral Haven, and Deep Blue were transformed into massive construction sites. Human engineering crews worked alongside Zephyrian builders, creating structures that defied traditional construction logic. The underwater facilities were works of art as much as they were functional installations. Curved surfaces followed ocean current patterns, while quantum field generators were integrated into coral-like structures that the Zephyrians grew rather than built. Dr. Kim found herself working 18-hour days, splitting her time between the three worlds and coordinating with teams of scientists from both species. But collaboration was unlike anything in her experience. The human approach is so direct, Dr. Veltar observed one day as they watched human construction crews installing massive quantum generators. You see a problem and attack it with overwhelming force and technology. Sarah laughed. And your approach is so elegant that our engineers spend half their time trying to understand how your solutions actually work. Perhaps that is why we work well together, Veltar replied, his patterns showing amusement. Your directness makes things happen quickly. Our elegance makes them work efficiently. The first major test came after 8 months of construction. The initial resonance array came online, connecting the three ocean worlds with instantaneous communication for the first time. Sarah stood in the primary control room on Deep Blue Station, watching as streams of data flowed between the three worlds without any detectable delay. The sensation was incredible, like watching three separate conversations become a single, unified discussion. Communication test successful, reported Dr. Harrison from New Pacifica. His voice came through clearly despite being transmitted across 3 light-years of space. No lag, no degradation, perfect clarity. Confirming from Coral Haven, added Dr. Martinez. This is remarkable. We're not just faster than quantum communication, we're instantaneous. Elder Mirana floated beside Sarah in the control room, her patterns showing deep satisfaction. This is only the beginning, she said. Once we refine the technique, we can extend the network to other star systems. Other star systems? Sarah asked. The resonance patterns can be replicated anywhere with sufficient ocean mass and the right technological infrastructure, explained Coordinator Fluxon. In theory, we could connect every water world in human space with instantaneous communication. Admiral Chan's voice joined the conversation from the command center. Remarkable work, everyone. Dr. Kim, Elder Mirana, I want projections for expanding the network to our other colonies within the next 6 months. But, even as they celebrated their success, long-range sensors were detecting anomalies in human space. The energy signatures from the resonance arrays were subtle but detectable to sufficiently advanced monitoring systems. 3 days after the first successful test, Admiral Chan received an encrypted message from Earth Command. The content was brief but alarming. Corvanian deep space monitors have detected unusual energy patterns in human colonial space. Galactic Council has requested an investigation. Prepare for potential inspection teams within 30 days. The grace period was ending. Soon, humanity and their Zephyrian partners would have to reveal their breakthrough to a galaxy that might not appreciate being surprised by such a significant technological advancement. Sarah read the message with growing concern. "Admiral, what do we do if the Council demands access to our technology?" Chen's expression was grim. "We hope that our partnership with the Zephyrians proves to be worth the political cost. Because in 30 days, we're going to find out whether the galaxy is ready to accept that the species they ignored might just have changed everything." The second document was drawing to a close, but the real test was yet to come. The breakthrough was complete, but the consequences were only beginning to unfold. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like it. High Counselor Vextar's 6 eyes tracked the impossible data streaming across the central display while delegates from dozens of species murmured in disbelief and concern. "Instantaneous communication across 12 star systems," announced the Corvanian investigation team leader, his mechanical voice carrying a note of something that might have been awe. "No quantum relay stations, no signal degradation, no detectable transmission delay." Ambassador Chen Wei stood at the human delegation platform, no longer the junior representative who had pleaded for the Zephyrians 18 months earlier. Beside him, Elder Mirana floated in a specially constructed aquatic chamber, her pattern showing calm confidence despite the hostile attention focused on both their species. "The humans and their allies have achieved what our greatest scientists claimed was theoretically impossible," continued the investigator. "They have created a communication network that operates outside known physics." Senator Kvash of the Hegemony Union rose from his platform, his serpentine form coiling with agitation. "How long have you been concealing this technology, human? What other secrets are you hiding in violation of galactic transparency protocols?" Chen remained calm despite the accusatory tone. "Senator Kvash, we have not violated any protocols. The development of new technologies within sovereign space is not subject to galactic oversight unless it poses a threat to galactic security." "And you claim this poses no threat?" General Hicksvor of the Thrakkery slammed his massive tail against his platform. "Communication technology of this magnitude could revolutionize military coordination. It could destabilize the entire balance of power." "Which is precisely why," Chen replied evenly, "we're here today to share our discovery with the entire council." A murmur of surprise rippled through the chamber. Several delegates exchanged rapid communications, their various forms of speech creating a cacophony of sound. High Counselor Vextar raised a mechanical hand for silence. "Explain, Ambassador Chen." Elder Mirana's pattern shifted to the formal colors of official communication. "Honored Council, the technology you have observed represents a collaboration between human engineering and Zephyrian theoretical science. We offer to share this breakthrough with all galactic civilizations under a cooperative framework." The chamber erupted. Delegates from powerful species shouted over each other, demanding immediate access to the technology, while representatives from smaller civilizations watched with growing hope. "Silence!" Vextar's voice boomed through amplifiers. "The Elder Mirana will continue." Mirana waited for quiet before proceeding. "The resonance communication system requires two components: advanced quantum field manipulation technology and deep understanding of three-dimensional fluid dynamics. Most importantly, it requires extensive cooperation between species with different approaches to problem solving." Counselor ZYX Anna of the Ethereal Concordance projected her thoughts directly. "You suggest that this technology cannot simply be taken and replicated?" "That is correct," Chen confirmed. "The mathematical principles underlying the system were developed through intensive collaboration between human and Zephyrian scientists over 18 months. The construction techniques require integration of both our species' approaches. It's not a device that can be copied, it's a methodology that must be learned." Admiral Torvex of the Altarian Federation activated his speaking platform. "Even if cooperation is required for initial development, once the principles are understood, they can be applied independently. Why offer to share such a strategic advantage?" Chen and Mirana exchanged a look or what passed for one between a human and an aquatic being whose visual system operated differently. "Because," Chen said, "we've learned that the greatest advances come from bringing diverse perspectives together, not from hoarding advantages." He activated a new display showing technological advancement charts. In the 18 months since the Zephyrian partnership began, human technological development has accelerated by 340%. Not because we absorbed their technology, but because their different way of thinking about problems helped us see solutions we had missed. Similarly, added Mirana, Zephyrian adaptation to new environments has improved dramatically through access to human construction and life support technologies. Both our species have benefited far more from cooperation than either could have achieved alone. Senator Kvash S. Hood flared with skepticism. Pretty words, but what prevents you from maintaining your technological superiority while giving the rest of us inferior versions? Because that's not how we're proposing to do this, Chen replied. We're not offering to sell you the technology or give you partial access. We're offering to teach any species that wants to learn how to develop it themselves. The chamber fell silent. This was unprecedented in galactic politics. Dr. Sarah Kim stepped forward from the human scientific delegation. Honored Council, may I demonstrate what we mean? Vexstar gestured permission. Sarah activated a holographic display showing complex mathematical equations and engineering schematics. This is the complete theoretical framework for resonance communication, Sarah explained. We're transmitting the full data package to the Council's scientific database right now. No restrictions, no patents, no hidden components. Gasps and exclamations echoed from scientific delegates throughout the chamber. Several began immediately accessing the data on their portable devices. However, Sarah continued, as you can see, the mathematics alone aren't sufficient. The system requires precise understanding of three-dimensional fluid dynamics, quantum field manipulation, and bioengineering principles that most species haven't developed. Dr. Veltar, the Zephyrian scientist, floated forward in his mobile suit. The human Dr. Kim speaks truthfully. These equations describe principles, but implementing them requires what your translators would call intuitive understanding of how fluids behave in complex gravitational fields. What exactly are you proposing? Asked Counselor ZYX Anna. Elder Mirana's patterns shifted to deep, formal blues. We propose the establishment of the Galactic Cooperative Science Initiative. Any species that wishes to develop resonance communication technology may send representatives to work with joint human-Zephyrian development teams. The learning process, Chen continued, would be reciprocal. Each species would contribute their own unique approaches and perspectives to the project. The Altarians' mathematical expertise, the Corvanians' precision engineering, the Ethereal's quantum manipulation. Every civilization has something valuable to offer. General Hicksvor leaned forward aggressively. And what prevents the humans and Zephyrians from maintaining permanent advantages as the developers of this system? Because, Mirana replied calmly, we don't want permanent advantages. We want permanent partnerships. She activated her own display, showing population and resource projections. The Zephyrian people now number nearly 12 million across human worlds. Our integration has been successful, but our species still face long-term challenges. Climate adaptation, resource distribution, technological development. We need partners, not subjects. More importantly, Chen added, we've learned that isolation leads to stagnation. Humanity's greatest advances have come through collaboration with other species. The Zephyrians taught us that our approach to problem solving, while effective, was unnecessarily complicated and resource-intensive. Admiral Torbeck stood, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's lights. Ambassador Chen, you ask us to believe that your species will voluntarily give up a strategic advantage for the sake of cooperation. This goes against every principle of galactic politics. Chen smiled slightly. Admiral, with respect, maybe it's time galactic politics evolved. The human ambassador gestured to the data still streaming across the chamber's displays. Look at what we've accomplished in 18 months by working with a species that the Council deemed worthless. Imagine what we could accomplish if every species contributed their unique perspectives to shared challenges. Imagine, added Dr. Kim, combining Thrakkeray military precision with ethereal quantum manipulation and Zephyrian fluid dynamics. Or integrating Altarian mathematics with Corvanian engineering and human adaptability. The possibilities are limitless. High Counselor Vexstar had been silent throughout the exchange, his mechanical form processing the implications. When he finally spoke, his words carried the weight of centuries of galactic governance. "What you propose represents a fundamental shift in how galactic civilization operates," he said slowly. "For millennia, species have advanced through competition, through the accumulation of advantages over others. You suggest replacing this with cooperation." "Not replacing," Chen corrected. "Expanding. Competition drives innovation, but cooperation amplifies it. The resonance communication technology exists because human innovation met Zephyrian insight. Neither species could have developed it alone." Mirana's pattern shifted to include gold highlights, the Zephyrian equivalent of formal emphasis. "High Counselor, we offer proof that cooperation surpasses competition in generating advancement. Our species went from facing extinction to contributing revolutionary technology in less than 2 years. Through human assistance," pointed out Senator Kvash. "Through human partnership," Mirana corrected. "Your records will show that humans invested significant resources in Zephyrian integration not because we offered them immediate returns, but because they believed in the value of diversity. And that belief," added Dr. Veltar, "has proven more profitable than any traditional resource exchange. The technologies we've developed together are worth more than the resources required for our integration." Counselor ZYX Anna projected another thought question. "How do we know this offer is genuine? What prevents the humans from using this initiative to gain intelligence on other species' capabilities?" Shen had been expecting this question. "Because the initiative requires genuine cooperation to work. You can't fake the kind of collaborative development that resonance communication requires. Any species participating in the program will have full access to human and Zephyrian methodologies, just as we'll have access to theirs. Furthermore," added Sarah, "the technology itself promotes transparency. Instantaneous communication networks make it nearly impossible to hide significant technological developments from other participants." The implications of that statement rippled through the chamber. A galaxy with instantaneous communication would be a galaxy where secrets were much harder to keep. General Hicksbore's tail movements showed deep consideration. "Dr. Kim, are you suggesting that this technology would make the galaxy more transparent?" "I'm suggesting it would make the galaxy more connected," Sarah replied. "Transparency would be a natural consequence of instant communication across vast distances." Admiral Torvex consulted with his delegation before speaking. "The Altarian Federation requests clarification. Under this cooperative initiative, would participating species have equal access to all developments, or would humans and Zephyrians maintain special status as originators?" "Equal access," Chen said firmly. "The moment a breakthrough is achieved by any participant, it becomes available to all participants. No special privileges, no delayed releases, no hidden reserves." Elder Mirana pulsed with agreement. "This is the Zephyrian way. Knowledge belongs to the community that creates it." The debate continued for hours. Species after species raised concerns, asked for clarifications, and proposed modifications to the framework. But, gradually, a consensus began to emerge. The smaller species, those who had been overlooked or marginalized in traditional galactic politics, were immediately enthusiastic. The prospect of gaining access to advanced technologies through cooperation rather than conquest was revolutionary. The major powers were more cautious but increasingly interested. The data Chen and Mirana had shared proved that the technology was genuine and valuable. More importantly, the mathematical complexity made it clear that cooperation truly was necessary for development. As the day wore on, High Counselor Vextar called for a formal vote. "All species in favor of establishing the Galactic Cooperative Science Initiative as proposed by the human and Zephyrian delegations, indicate your position." The voting display lit up across the chamber. One by one, civilizations that had never agreed on anything found themselves united in support of cooperation over competition. When the final vote was tallied, the result was overwhelming: 127 species in favor, 23 opposed, and 15 abstentions. "The motion carries," Vextar announced. "The Galactic Cooperative Science Initiative is hereby established under joint human-Zephyrian coordination." As delegates began filing out of the chamber, many approached the human and Zephyrian platforms to express interest in participating. The Altarians wanted to contribute their mathematical expertise. The Ethereals offered their quantum manipulation knowledge. Even some of the Thackeray delegation inquired about applying their engineering precision to the project. But the most meaningful moment came when a small delegation of previously unknown species approached Elder Mirana. They were the Whisperfolk, a barely acknowledged species that communicated through subsonic vibrations, and the Drift Singers, beings of crystallized gas that most species couldn't even detect without special equipment. Elder Mirana, spoke the Whisperfolk representative through a complex translation matrix. Our species have watched from the margins for centuries. We offer unique perspectives on wave propagation and resonance that might contribute to your communication systems. Mirana's patterns blazed with joy. All perspectives are welcome, friends. Together, we will discover possibilities none of us could imagine alone. As the chamber finally emptied, Chen found himself standing beside Mirana's aquatic chamber, both of them processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. Elder Mirana, Chen said quietly, when I offered sanctuary to your people 18 months ago, I never imagined it would lead to this. The ancient Zephyrian's pattern shifted to the deep colors that indicated profound satisfaction. Ambassador Chen, when my people faced extinction, we believed our story was ending. Instead, you helped us discover that it was just beginning. She paused, her bioluminescent patterns cycling through complex combinations that Chen had learned indicated deep thought. Your species taught us something invaluable, she continued. You showed us that strength isn't about what you can take from others, but about what you can build with others. Chen smiled. And your species taught us that the greatest discoveries come not from solving problems alone, but from learning to see problems through different eyes. As they prepared to leave the chamber, both leaders knew they were witnessing the beginning of a new era in galactic civilization. The age of competition and domination was giving way to something unprecedented, a galaxy built on cooperation, inclusion, and the recognition that every species, no matter how small or overlooked, had something valuable to contribute. The Zephyrians had been saved from extinction. Humanity had gained respect and partnerships throughout the galaxy. But, most importantly, the galaxy itself had learned a new way to grow and thrive. In the months that followed, the Galactic Cooperative Science Initiative would produce breakthrough after breakthrough. Technologies that had stagnated for centuries would advance rapidly through collaborative development. Species that had never interacted would discover unexpected synergies. And, at the center of it all, the partnership between humanity and the Zephyrians would continue to serve as proof that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from standing alone, but from choosing to stand together. The story that began with one species protecting another had become the foundation for an entirely new kind of galactic civilization, one where being overlooked was no longer a death sentence, but an opportunity for others to discover the value that had always been there, waiting to be recognized.